Hey guys, welcome back. It's Obus Form here, and today's video is going to be about patch 1.01, Mythic class cards, how to maximize the level 3 abilities that you guys have seen, as well as showing you 2 gameplay videos where I do use them, and the last gameplay video of the 2 will show myself having access to a second class card. It's not a bug, but it is one way to play. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The tournament has been postponed to at least September the 16th. Do keep an eye out for that. And welcome to the new channel. We decided to start a new channel because I believe the progenitor, the founding father of the previous channel did want his stuff back. So, to avoid conflicts of interest, we have set up a new Discord for the tournament. This is the new YouTube for these contents, and also we will set up a new Patreon to get things going, so do keep an eye out for that and do join the new Patreon. Alright, so with that, we're going to get started right into the video. So I wanted to go over the class cards. As you guys know already, the class cards are mythic level from the new D&D set, and I'm going to sort of put them into different categories. And the way I would do that is you would use Oath of the Paladin. My apologies, Oath of the Paladin. You would use the Aura of Courage in the same way you would use Path of Barbarians, Indomitable Strength. You would use these in 2 cards in the same way. While I would put School of Wizards, Elemental Mastery, and Pact of the Warlocks, Whispers of the Grave, I would use these 2 cards in a different way. What I'm specifically saying is Aura of Courage and Indomitable Strength, I would use them after you have set up the board, and then you use them to create tempo and to force bad decisions from your opponents. We'll get right into it in a minute. While School of the Wizards, Elemental Mastery, and the Warlocks, Whispers of the Grave, you would try to cast their ultimates in the beginning ASAP, and then try to maximize their use while the match goes on. So we're going to get straight into Path of the Barbarian, because I haven't seen many people, or rather I haven't seen anyone on stream use this one. I haven't seen anyone, in any of my matches, and I haven't used it myself. So let's take a look. It says, for the rest of the game, aside from feeling like you're in an ASMR video by listening to my voice, after 1 or more friendly creatures with 5 or more power attacks, deal 5 damage to the opponent. So even if you had 10 creatures attacking, with a power 1000, it will only deal 5 damage. So you only truly need 1 creature that has the 5 damage. So let's take a look at all the red cards. I think the most obvious strategy is to go for, red cards that do give you 5 damage or more, and not a lot of them do, as you guys know, because they're expensive. So no one really uses Ragathon Firecat. No one does that. But I think the most obvious one is maybe Ball Lightning, right? It triggers it, it's going to do damage, and just by attacking, it will do 5 damage. Okun the Crusher, by the time he attacks, he will be 5 damage. Zozu, another 5 damage. And the rest of the red cards either don't have 5 damage when they're used, or for that effect, right? You could use Fire Spell Elemental. But in any case, the way that you're supposed to use that mythic class ability is that it's without trample. So if you don't have trample, if you don't have lava axe, this basically allows your creatures to act as a lava axe, and that's the point of using it, to get the damage through. But what about if your creatures only have, let's say 4 damage? Unfortunately, red only has a few creatures that can buff, but it is possible. So you can have, let's say, a 4 or 3 damage creature, and you can buff it with Sword Cannoneers. That's one way of doing it. You can also use that red spell if you really want it, but no one really does. Trumpet Blast, it is possible though, and a neat way to bring all your 3 creatures to 5, but that's really only what red has. But let's take a look at red and green. Why? Because Domri. So Domri, as you guys know, his signature cards actually, let's take a look. Creatures only. Domri's signature cards are actually all 5 cost natively. So Rampaging Nodorog is 6, And also the other one, Rampaging Boar, is also 5. So Domri is a perfect fit for the Path of the Barbarian. But actually, let's take a look at now just the green creatures, because green is known for big stats, right? So we can have, for example, well, there's not a lot of green creatures that are natively 5. By the time you get there, it's already 4 cost. Iron Skin Troll, Onari Leotu, General Eldarmi. Let's turn off foils. There we go. So that's only it for green, and by the time you hit 5, well, we all know 5 mana has big 5 damage or more, right? So that's not it. So what's the other way of doing it for green? Well, it's to play a bunch of 4 damage guys, Colonian Tusker, maybe a Tormogryph, with 2 types in your graveyard. Excuse me. Maybe a Spiked Baloth with 4 damage. Why? Because then you can combo them at 4 damage with a Regenerate. And now it's suddenly at 5 damage. You can combo them off with a Grudge Match, and now it's suddenly 5 damage. So maybe you want to have some Grudge Matches, maybe you want to have to Regenerate, maybe you would like to have Gorm the Great to give you more Grudge Matches, and suddenly your 4 damage, 4 power guys can now be 5 damage. Another interesting way also is actually, where is that little guy? The Briar Fox, excuse me, when he attacks, he does have a chance to make him 5 damage. And another interesting way is actually, where is this card? I am looking specifically for that green spell. Is it a little expensive? Yeah, Beast Mode. Turn something into a 6/6 with haste. So if you're playing Domri and you have a 2/1, goblin field, or 2/1 goblin guy, that's the 1 mana, you can do Inner Beast and turn him into a 6/6 with haste. You could even do Amalgamate if you're into that. So that's actually how you can do it for green. Now let's take a look at red and white. Why? Because Nahiri. As you guys know, Nahiri's passive is the Stone Forge Blade. And it says give your Stone Forge Blade +1, right, to a friendly creature. And as you guys know, the Barbarian needs to have a creature of 5 attack. So let's take a look at all the red and white creatures that are 4, and then you can suddenly make Overgrown Iguana. You can make it 5 attack with Stoneforge Mystic, Stoneforge Blade, Nahiri's passive. You can turn Leonin War Leader into 5 damage. Stoneforge Mystic, giving a random buff, +1/+1, is another way to turn it into 5 damage. Swordsmith, he himself can be 5 damage, and then also Sharp Sword to give someone +2/+0 onto like a hasty guy. So these are some interesting ways that you can get your cards to do suddenly 5 damage when they weren't initially 5 power. Underneath the Capuchin, right, even better to perfect synergy with Stoneforge Blade from Nahiri. Excuse me, I have this very odd cough from the last few days. Tajik, right, if you give Stoneforge Blade. So yeah, these are some of the ways that Nahiri can proc that off. So I only covered, white, red, and green, because that's probably where the Barbarian War, the Path of the Barbarian rather, is going to be used. It is possible in blue, and we're talking about Ral, but some of the blue creatures are maybe a little more difficult to have 5 damage. I guess I'm really thinking about that Mizzium Monstrosity. As you guys know, Mizzium Monstrosity, after you play a spell, it can get randomly to be, +2 or +0/+2. So it is possible, but it's harder to do. You also have, of course, as you guys know, the very much nerfed Breaching Serpents. Breaching Serpent is already 5 damage. Arcanus the Archmage, right, is already, but these are sort of, at the end game. I don't really know if you could really make it as a Ral-Barian, as a Ral using Path of Barbarian. So that's how you would maximize Path of the Barbarian. And the way you would use it is you would play your creatures first, and then maybe play Indomitable Strength. So I'll show you a video later on, and same thing with Aura of Courage. It says, for the rest of the game, after a friendly creature attacks, it gets +1/+1. So you'd maybe want to have cards that fill your board, and you can use this in something like Kaya, or something like Gideon, and the one I'm thinking of, that mythic card, is, let's take a look. For Kaya, it would be the Obsidian. You would play the Obsidian, fill your board, and then most of the time the 5/5 himself would die off, but you might not kill off all your flying creatures, and the opponent might think that you're going to attack for 4 damage. And so before you attack, you play the Aura of Courage, and suddenly instead of doing 4 damage, you do 8. And that's how you can sort of time it to be properly timed and sort of a sudden attack. Another way of doing it is like, Trostani, it can summon 2 more soldiers, right? And then on the next turn, people will think the soldiers are just, 1/1, but now, nope, they become 2/2, and Trostani becomes a 6/6, stuff like that. So anything that fills the board becomes a nice way of triggering Aura of Courage. So now let's get into the, oops, I guess it's not a spell. Let's get into the other class cards. School of Wizard, Elemental Mastery. For the rest of the game, at the end of each turn, you spend 6 mana or more on spells only on spells, not on artifacts, not on creatures, but spells only, summons a water elemental. A water elemental is a 2 mana, and it's a 5/5 sneak. But anyways, when you successfully use this spell, it procs itself. So casting this spell will give you on board a 5/5 sneak that if it does get returned to your hand, it only costs 2 mana. So let's look at all those 6 or more spells, 6 mana or more spells. And the reason we're looking at this, blue and white, is because it's for Jace, it's for, this guy, Big Daddy Teferi. So Second Sun's Dawn, 6 mana, it's perfect. Heal yourself for 7 HP and get a 5/5 sneak. Day of Judgment, destroy the entire board and then get a 5/5 sneak. Clear the field, get a 5/5 sneak. Lava Wave, 6 damage to everyone, and then get a 5/5 sneak, if you can somehow manage that, right? So that's an interesting way to use the wizard's mana thing, or mana requirement. However, there are some other things that we must take into account. For example, what if you don't have 6 mana? Well, then you'd have to use like 2 or 3 to anticipate and like an unsummon, right? If you're playing Jace, or maybe if you're playing Teferi, and a retaliate and an unsummon, or something from your Isochron Scepter, something like that. If you're Jace, you could use Repulse and then a Divination to get a 5/5 sneak. So you would have control, card draw, and a 5/5 sneak. If you're playing Teferi, Smite the Monstrous, Path of Exile, Destroy, and then a 5/5 sneak. Or maybe Shell Game, 4 mana, Power Word Stun, LOL, stun for the rest of the game, right? So 4 mana, comboed off with a 2 mana, and then get a 5/5 sneak. So now when you play Jace, not only do you have to count your cards and the opponent's number of cards, not only are you sort of trying to guess what your opponent is playing for Remand traps, especially if you're Teferi as well, for Teferi's traps. Now you have to think of the mana costs in your hand like the way Ral does. One side note, Jace's passive and Ral's passive, when it changes the cost of each card, to 1, and you cast those spells at 1 mana cost, that's actually counter synergy to the wizard's sort of thing, because the wizard's elemental mastery says it has to be 6 mana or more on spells. So when all your spells suddenly cost 1 mana, it's counter synergy to this ultimate. When Ral has a discount on his spells, excuse me, sounds like I'm dying. When Ral has a discount on his spells, it's actually a counter synergy. So you have to be careful if you decide, or when you decide, to proc Jace's passive, and when you decide to proc Ral's passive. So School of the Wizard, it's best to play it ASAP, and then every spell after that, every bunch of spells you can get 5/5. Same thing with Pact of the Warlock. In case you guys didn't realize, there are some different costs. 1, 3, 5 mana, 1, 3, 6 mana, 2, 2, 6 mana, expensive, right? But Pact of the Warlock is cheap, 1, 3, 3 mana. So this is great for something like Kaya, for something like Vraska, even Liliana. Let's take a look. For the rest of the game, after a friendly creature dies on your turn, drain 1 from your opponent. So drain 1 does 1 damage and gives you 1 HP. It's exactly the same as Ashiok's Nightmares, but it's actually only triggering when a creature dies on your turn. So this is just like Vraska. For those asking, is this actually counting as a finale? No, this is a spell. So Vraska's passive does not work with this. It won't drain 2 from your opponent. I think that would be way overpowered. This is a spell, but it does only trigger when a creature dies on your turn. So it combos well with Vraska, who is killing her own stuff on her turn. Combos well with Liliana, because now your opponent has to guess, should I block? If I block, then I'm gonna be drained 1, and then they could revive with, you know, Zombify or the Blessed Rebirth. If I don't block, then of course I eat a ton of damage from the relentless creatures. So that's great for Liliana. It's also really good for Kaya, because as you guys know, when Kaya does her damage quest, then she can get more cards, right? She can spawn one of her 3 cards from these guys, Sly, Somber, and Stalwart Spirit. She gets her cut down back, and if you don't block, well, she does the damage, and if you do block and it kills your creature, she will automatically drain 1 from you. So it becomes a very hard decision when you block Kaya's stuff. So that's why I would say School of the Wizard and Pact of the Warlock. You would play their ultimates as soon as you can to get maximized value, but Oath of the Paladins, you know, Aura of Courage, and Indomitable Strength is played only when you already have the board state to use their abilities to maximize, so that your opponent has not been thinking about it the entire time. I would say Circle of the Druid's ultimate, the wild-shaped Brontosaurus. That is something in the middle. You can just play it whenever you want. If you need a blocker, if you need some damage, if you need to stay alive for a turn, right? It might save you because it basically acts as a 10 HP shock absorber. Yeah, it won't heal itself by a lot. It's only 2 per turn, and it's only 1 creature, so it won't save the game, but it is a nice way to sort of, you know, give you an extra 10 HP on that turn if you need to survive. So that's sort of how you can maximize the use of these ultimates of the class cards. And now we're going to go into 2 video gameplays, where the first one is Liliana with me playing Pact of the Warlock, and my opponent was using Oath of Paladin, and you'll see them use it very effectively. And the second game is me on School of the Wizard Jace versus another opponent using Pact of the Warlock, but you'll see me actually use a second class card. Alright guys, so the first video is me on Liliana with the Warlock class card versus Jeremy, another mod, an admin actually of Discord, and you can hear me clicking wildly because I want to say, you know, the opening greeting. Anyways, Jeremy is playing, you know, the Afro Assassin with the number 2 headband, Kaya, and she is using the Paladin. And I do want to fast forward until the part where we actually do use them, but Pact Bound Quasi is a 2/3, and just so you guys know, I think it combos exceptionally well with Liliana, White Splash, to fight off early game aggression. Why? Because you can actually revive that 2/3. You can give it Relentless from the Mausoleum Witch, the 3 mana 2/2. You can revive it if it dies on that turn with your Blessed Rebirth. And it, since you keep draining 1 HP from it every turn, it's a very interesting way for you to just sort of, stay alive with HP and a creature that grows and grows. It's actually quite funny. In any case, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because, it's just Liliana doing Liliana things and Kaya doing Kaya things. So, Kaya does the, the first class card of the Paladin. Stuff happens. Oh, let's go back actually. Let's go back one more time and one more time. So, yeah, so as you guys can see in this part, use the 4 mana 2/3 guy that gives another thing 4/4 and dies. And that's some of the new cards. It's not a class card, but some of the new cards that were used effectively to do the damage and sort of, proc Kaya's quests when they're blockers. So that's what's happening here. Skip forward. So I actually, I get the cut, in case you guys are wondering, I get the cut down because this deck I'm experimenting, I get a get ahead, and I was very lucky to get a cut down. I stole one, so he only has one the whole game. Of course, I cut down the 2/1 guy. So, just the game is going on, and I don't want to, because I want to get to the ultimate and show you guys. Yep, so I have Day of Judgment, Day of Judgment. All right, stuff happens, stuff happens. So now the real game is happening, right? I've cleared the board, I'm alive, he's alive, and let's see what starts happening. So yeah, Blood Queen Drana doesn't block, and I doom it, and he attacks, I cast stuff, you know, stuff happens. He gets his quest done for damage. So I'm really interested in the part where he finally uses the Aura of Courage, and to show you guys how he decides to use it. So this, by the way, this, we'll pause here, this sort of zombie guy, he did get nerfed. He was a 5/5, you know, -2/2. Now he's a 6/5 -1, and it was not in my deck, so I'm not using him. I do agree he was nerfed, and he's not as usable, but he was generated by my graveyard, and that's why he's here. So in any case, I attack. And I did not think he was going to block the 4/4, or maybe he would just kill the 3/2. Yeah, he does decide to, there we go, he decides to block. And I think it's because he's going to use Cut Down, right, to take care of things. So watch what happens. So he is on 8 mana, 7 life ahead. He does play the Obsidian, fills the board, and I think he's going to use the 1 mana, I think in this turn. Yeah, so he does do the cut down. Great, smart plays, right? So it's on my turn, and if he... So let's pause it for a sec. Right now on board, he has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, it would be really game over, even 9 damage, right? He would get his cut down back, so, and that would be the 10th damage. So I have to take care at least of the 5 damage. I don't have anything flying, so I can't block that even if I wanted to, which is one of Liliana's weaknesses, at least the way I play her. She doesn't have anything flying. So let's see what I do. So I think I'm going to take care of the Obsidats themselves. It's actually a council of ghosts. So the Obsidat themselves with, you know, Sinister Southpaw, something like that. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, so the reason why Jeremy doesn't block is because it looks like if he blocks the 3/2 with the 5/5, that maybe I have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe I have 5 zombies, right? He doesn't want to, but I'm actually, he doesn't want to give me my 1 discount, because at 9 mana can cast a lot of zombies. But I'm actually totally bluffing. I've got no zombies. Sinister Southpaws, maybe 1 Gravedigger, right? Total bluff, but it works. I get the damage through. I'm thinking I should Fatal Infection, but then if I do, he still does the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, and then he'll get his cut down back and end the game, so I have to kill that guy now. So I do that. Excuse me, terrible cough these days. Alright, so I get 1 HP back, and I'm thinking in this point in my mind, if I do take damage, it's only going to be 4 damage. He needs 6 to complete his quest. He needs 6 damage, but he only has 4, so he's not going to get cut down back, and that guy's going to die, and you know, 12 minus 4 is only 8. I'll be okay. Oh, and now I got 1 more, so I gave myself 1 more guy just to get 1 more life in case. So 13 minus 4 is 9, so I'll be at 9 HP. At least that's what my thought was. So what happens now? What do you do, Kaya, when the board and the life and everything is not in your favor? And now he plays Aura of Courage, and I was not ready for that. So instead of being 4 damage from my 13 HP, it's now 8 damage from 13 HP, and it's enough to finish Kaya's quest. A very dangerous situation. Look at that. Totally unexpected, big tempo swing, finishes her quest, and it brings me down to 5. And now she can cast 1 more spirit, right? The stun, the sneak, or the draining spirit, depending on what she got. And she gets another cut down back. If it wasn't for, I'll pause here, if it wasn't for the cut down that I drew and stole from her deck, although it was at the bottom, so she probably wouldn't have access to it, right? But if she had 2 cut downs, it might have probably been game over, or at least much closer to it. So, alright, Kaya doing Kaya things, so what does she do? Does the counterfeiter? Does the finale guy drain 2? So remember, now you guys have to take into consideration, when that sneak guy attacks, it's not going to do 2 damage, it's going to be 3 damage. 3 damage that's not blockable because it's sneak, plus the drain from the 2, that's 5. And so that's the power of, you know, playing smart, but also using Aura of Courage after the board has been set up for a huge unseen, you know, you just can't, you can block the Aura of Courage, you can remand it, you can negate it, but if people don't have that in mind, it just becomes sudden tempo swing. So in this part I misplayed. I probably should have done Stoneforge Mystic, you know, maybe to give the 5 guy, you know, +1/+1 sneak or flying, or, you know, something for sneak. But anyways, I was just thinking I could just take care of it because I have my Sinister Southpaw if something doesn't get blocked. See, I'm at the 3 life, and as long as the 2/1 lives, and as long as any of the flyers live, I'm dead. So what does Kaya do? Because as a single one, as long as a single one rather attacks, I'm going to die because they're all going to be +1 damage. And so now you have to think of this. By the way, in case you guys are wondering, the number 1 beside the Planeswalker's body means that there is one effect affecting that Planeswalker. In this case, it's our class thing. But look how I deal with this. So as you guys know, my Warlock's ultimate, every time I kill a creature on my turn, I drain 1 HP. So Sinister Southpaw casting it drains 1 HP, and then killing another guy, because I have to kill my guy, targets, or rather gives me another HP. So the Warlock's ultimate saves me. So that's 1 HP. And that's another one. There we go. And just for good measure, I get 1 more HP. So, thanks to, you know, Aura of Courage, what made it a very close game, but as a result of my Warlock's passive, or rather the Warlock's ultimate, I was able to survive. Otherwise, he would have won. And even with doing the 3 damage and then getting the, you know, Kaya's blade, or rather the cut down back, it brings me down to 2. So despite having access and used Liliana's passive to the maximum and the Warlock's ability to the maximum, it actually brings me down to 2.
That wasn't a waste of time after all.
Yeah, there we go.
Nothing personal.
So that's how you can sort of, you know, maximize the use of Aura of Courage and also the Warlock's thing while playing at least what I would say a very powerful control white Liliana with the abilities like Sinister Southpaw, yeah, and filling the board to cast your guys. So I ended it just by killing my own guy and draining 1, but using Sinister Southpaw to kill your own guys as for control and drain at the same time. Oh, there's an error, and the end button is still there. So let's get right into the second video. Alright guys, so in this match, it's me on Jace, White Splash, of course. I do use Aether Figment, I know it was nerfed, versus a Kaya, using the Pact of the Warlock, I guess, class card. And I do want to show you, by chance of chances, I do end up using and having access to their Pact of the Warlock. I do have an extremely hard tempo play mid-game that, even though Kaya did have a quest, or rather have a trap, I was able to counter that. So it actually does, sorry, not mid-game, it actually happens close to the beginning. So I don't want to skip it because I want to show you the power of the Wizard's Familiar if you just happen to have the right cards that can save you or give you a massive tempo swing. It almost feels like Ral tempo swing from last patch. So, you know, I'm just doing Jace things just to throw up a body, right? To absorb the sneak ability of the Silent Prowler 2/1. So Kaya does her Kaya thing, she attacks, uses up the sneak, and there we go, Vengeful Brute, finishes the quest, good for her. And I'm thinking, you know what, I'll attack with the 2/3, and it should at least trade evenly with the 3/2. So I attack, and does she block? She blocks, and it just shields up, so that's a huge tempo swing. And as you guys know, Jace does not have really removal. Watch what I do this. So I play the Familiar, and it makes my Anticipation 0 mana, so now I can cast it. I choose the Isochron, and because I drafted, I can play my Aether Figment. So what a huge tempo swing. I mean, I know, you know, it was very terrible to attack and it got blocked with the shields up, and that's terrible. But now I can block trade evenly 1-to-1 and the 3-2 into the 3-2. So just like that, that's the power of the familiar. If it can reduce your anticipate or your shocks, right, to sort of save you from 1 or 2 bad decisions early in the game. If you're playing Ral, if you're playing Jace, and you have those, you know, cheap removal spells from your Isochron or just naturally as a Ral player. And you can see here Kaya is sort of, you know, deciding, should I attack, should not I attack? And it makes it look like she might have some of the other traps, but nope, she doesn't. So luckily for me, she doesn't have any of the traps. I was thinking here, I was scared, because if she were to play a Blessed Rebirth, have the 2-1 sneak come back, and a 3-2 on board, that would have undone my entire tempo, and now I'd have to rely on Day of Judgment. So Pact-bound Quasit, right, it does get played, so Sunnyvale Omen, blah blah blah. So of course you guys know Isochron Scepter, drafts a card. In here I was thinking I would do a Braid to either kill that, or Mana Surge. Why Mana Surge? Because then at 6 mana, I would have had a 7th to Day of Judgment. As you guys know, a Braid does the 2, so I pick a Braid anyways for the instant clear. I do 2 damage to the Pact-bound Quasit, it becomes a 2-1, and then on her turn it drains itself to become a 2-0, and so she heals for 1, and so that's why I picked a Braid. So I'm thinking Mana Surge, a Braid, Mana Surge, a Braid, what should I do? So Aether Figment, yeah, Braid, there we go, it's a 2-1, and on her turn it kills itself. I just want some board control, that's all I'm after. So Kaya doing Kaya things, Jace doing Jace things. And at 4 mana, what does Kaya decide to do? Is it going to be like, oh, there we go, Courtly Killer, and maybe like a, nope, this doesn't have anything else? No, okay, that's it. Maybe she has a trap, so I'm not going to attack, obviously. Drain 2 blood or destabilize. I was thinking drain 2 or destabilize to turn the Courtly Killer, right? But it's not going to trade particularly favorably anyway, so decide to get the drain blood to kill the 2-1. The 2 mana signature spell, it actually gives you any of the usable signature spells that are from other planeswalkers. It could even be yourself. I have drafted Repulse from a signature spell. I have not yet drafted Nahiri's Stoneforge, you know, that outburst or whatever, Nahiri's Outburst, because it has no, I think they made it so that you can have always, you know, usable. It's not just a random, otherwise you can use Nahiri's thing, right? So here, anyways, I'm talking. So here you can see more traps and more sort of, you know, board control. Kaya going all in with the traps. And at 5 mana, and next turn I get 6 mana, that's why I thought, you know, I should now have made, or rather have kept, that Mana Surge instead of the Abrade earlier from my Isochron Scepter. So that's sort of what's going on in my mind. And let's see what happens. So now I'm on 6 mana. I think I just, yeah, Mage of Insight, Drain Blood, right? I mean, what else can I do? Just sort of more board control. And I think Kaya goes all in, and she decides, okay, Hellmouth Cave. So that's a really good time to Hellmouth Cave, you know, more damage on the board. Maybe she can stun someone. Maybe she has more silent, or rather maybe more sneaky guys. And so that's what I'm sort of contending with at 5 mana that she has with a Hellmouth Cave proc. So yep, Kaya does Kaya thing, she attacks. I'm thinking, you know what, finally, I have my Day of Judgment, I will stay alive. So that's what's happening in my mind as a control player. Yeah, she does the Sly Spirit, and the Silent Prowler devotes a lot of resources to the board. Just like Jace says, Day of Judgment, I can breathe a sigh of relief. So we're just going to fast forward to the more interesting part. So, oh, okay, you know what, never mind. So, hold on, let's take a step back. So, never mind, let's not fast forward. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. So at this point, I'm thinking, you know, I'm okay. So I play, yeah, Signature Spell, Animal Arrow, but I'm going to maximize my mana and do Master of Possibilities. And what do I get? Well, it costs 0, so I should probably do Scour the Void. And yep, so I do pick Scour the Void. And what do I get? Oops. Let's pause it. I get, as you guys can see down here on the bottom right, I get the Pact Bound Quasit. So what happens? What do you guys think is going to happen? Flagrant Foul? Sure. Why not? Ragnar Redeemer? Sure. Why not?
We are invincible.
So watch what happens. I play my Elemental Mastery. Of course, it's going to give me a 5/5 sneak. See? When I play the Pact Bound Quasit, it gives me the Sign of Ill Omen. I'm thinking, if Scour the Void also gave me the Sign of Ill Omen, it might actually allow me to play Sign of Ill Omen, and then it would give me the next card up. It would level up, because as you guys know, playing the classed card gives you the next class card in your deck. It's just like Second Sun. Playing Second Sun gives you this 10 damage Second Sun. So playing any of the class cards from level 1 or level 2 gives you the next class card. So I'm thinking Ashiok players with Scour the Void, or Liliana players, or anyone black with Scour the Void could end up using a second class card. So that's how I manage it. Chance of Chances, Master of Possibilities, Scour the Void. Scour the Void gives me that, level 1 class card. So yeah, it becomes a little bit overpowered, because now I have a second class card, and as you guys know, for the majority of the level 2 class cards, the majority of them are some sort of hard removal spell. Damage minus stats, right? Except for maybe the green one from the Druid. So he does the Sign of Ill Omen, gets Whispers of the Grave, and guess what I do when I draw? So now he plays Counterfeiter, has a Ragnar Redeemer, does a 3 damage, it's not enough to proc, and I get my Sign of Ill Omen, so I do that. And I think this is, as you guys know, hard game. So yeah, I didn't even know I could get that. That's why I say that. And of course, Second Sun's done, and I get another 5/5 sneak. This is game over. Yeah. So this is a way to play a second class card. It's not a bug, but it's a very cool way, because second class card, or rather class cards, are just cards in anyway. So if you can draft them, if you can draw them, if you can steal them from your opponent somehow, you might be able to play it. So I hope you guys like this video. Do let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see for new videos, and I hope you guys do subscribe and join. We will have a link for a new Patreon, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.